Greetings, fellow humans, and welcome to the Renaissance Yorkshireman podcast. Today's narrative is about the Nine Planetary Boundaries. But before we get into that, we need to talk a little bit about carrying capacity and negative and positive externalities. Carrying capacity is the amount of pollution a particular system can take before it starts to degrade or collapse. Let's imagine an historical example from before the Industrial Revolution. So perhaps there is a small village next to a river, and the people from the village are dumping their trash and waste into the river. One thing to note is, historically, there was no plastic, so almost all of the waste, or even all of the waste, will have been biodegradable, and the population of every country in the world was substantially lower than it was today. So in many cases, the villagers could in fact dump their trash in the river, and it would not exceed the carrying capacity of the river, and the river would be able to naturally absorb the pollution, and the ecosystem would not degrade or collapse. If we take another example since after the Industrial Revolution, let's imagine a town by a river, and it builds a factory next to the river, and the factory starts putting pollution into the river. Perhaps in this case, the amount of pollution exceeds the carrying capacity of the river, and some of the biological systems of the river start to break down. Some of the fish start to die. And if this continues, after a longer period of time, more and more animals will begin to die, and more of the river's ecological capacities will break down. In an economic analysis, we could say that the factory, by employing people, is creating positive externalities, because those people then have more money and can spend their money, and the money is circulating in the economy. We can also say that the ecological degradation of the river is a negative economic externality, because people won't be able to fish there anymore. Also, there is less potential for leisure pursuits, because people don't want to go boating on a polluted river where all the fish are dead. In a classic economic analysis, we could measure the negative externalities against the positive externalities, and if we make a judgment that there are more positive than negative externalities, then we could say that the pollution of the river was a good thing. To me, this speaks of an economic system that fundamentally has a value system that is completely warped. And this is one of the reasons why we need post-capitalist economic systems. Various scientists, often working for international bodies such as the UN, have identified at least 9 planetary boundaries. They are stratospheric ozone depletion, loss of biosphere integrity, chemical pollution, climate change, ocean acidification, freshwater and global hydrological cycle, land system change, nitrogen and phosphorus flows to biosphere and oceans, and finally, number 9, atmospheric aerosol loading. Some scientists have proposed a 10th planetary boundary, which is plastic in the environment. If we take one of these as an example, so let's say the second one, loss of biosphere integrity. The number of mammals living in the wild has dropped by more than 50% in the last century. This is directly a cause of the socio-economic systems that we have, which are primarily capitalism. A judgment has been made that creating money is more important than habitat loss and loss of biosphere integrity. This absolutely is a value judgment that is completely wrong. If we don't have a healthy environment, humans cannot live. It's well known that air pollution can cause respiratory problems and reduce life expectancy, for example. And this is a direct negative externality of the economic systems that we have today. One of the reasons for this is a warped interpretation of the 5 capitals framework. The simple fact of the matter is, If we overshoot one or more of the 9 or 10 planetary boundaries, we may be in danger of destroying the natural environment to such an extent that it threatens human existence. Of course, it's more likely to threaten human existence if we're overshooting 5, 6, 7 or 8 than if we're only overshooting 1. The problem with the current system at the moment is we are overshooting most, if not all of them, to a certain degree in different parts of the world, some of them by quite a large degree. This is an issue that has to be tackled by looking at our socio-economic systems, and we have to transition from late stage ideological capitalism to post-capitalist systems. In the next video, I'll talk about the 5 capitals framework and how it's crucial to understanding what is currently going wrong with our economic systems, and simultaneously how reinterpreting it can allow us to create post-capitalist systems that are environmentally sustainable in the long term. Thank you for giving me your time today. Peace.